So, hi everyone, this is Brynn. So, I had a request from one of my artists to talk about drawing clowns. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about what that could possibly entail. So, my background is in cartoons and that kind of stuff, and this particular artist also draws in a very cartoony style. So that's what I'm gonna be drawing today. I'm gonna be drawing a cartoon character, but it's gonna be something I kind of create based on kind of her prompt of clowns. So what I'm gonna be writing here is kind of all the different things I need to know about my character before I start drawing them. So I want to know their name, their age, or their gender, how they appear, what do they look like, what are they, their occupation, in this case would be a clown, um, where are they from? What's their location? Where do they live? Where does the story for your character take place? I also wanted to establish what's their personality. Are they happy? Are they super outgoing? Are they more introverted? Do they stay inside all the time? What is their attitude? Are they excited about life? Are they kind of more sad all the time? It's just a good thing to know. So here you can see these different references I've chosen. I've chosen to choose things that are from pop culture. So I started with the Joker from the more recent movie, and then I started also with the It Clown, as it's this particular artist's one of their favorite characters, so it felt appropriate to include in my kind of choice of references. So, and then I also have here, I have a picture of Cam from the TV show Modern Family dressed as a clown. And I just found these online. It's a good idea to kind of check out your references. Look online for things. I love Pinterest. Personally, I have whole Pinterest boards of different pictures I can use. Um, so I'm going to write here all the traits that I see that are similar. So I'm starting with, as you can see, I'm starting with white face paint. All these characters is some form of white face paint or makeup. I'm also noticing that they all have eye makeup of some kind. For the most part, I don't think Cam really does, but the Joker and the It Clown certainly do. They also all have some kind of mouth makeup that's kind of coming in some red or pink tones. I'm also seeing that they have really colorful clothing or costumes. I'm seeing some similar colors, like Cam and the It Clown have purples and reds. The Joker has some reds. There's also seems to be kind of a common factor that they're all patterned clothes. Um, and they also all seem to have some form of like colored hair. And they're all different colors. There's no like set color that seems to be kind of defining through all of the characters. Um, like Joker has green, the It Clown has red, Cam has purple hair. So these are just all things to make note of. You don't necessarily have to follow what the reference says if you're designing your own cartoon character, but it's a good idea to think about what that character would typically look like so you can kind of have it read visually. Like I think most clowns, they all have some form of red nose. So for my character, I've decided not to do something horror based because that's just not. I want to make this more palatable for a lot of people. Not everybody likes horror. So what I'm going to be designing is actually more of a cutesy clown character. Something that's going to be a little bit more playful, a little bit more fun. So what you see up top, that's what we need for our character, including personality and attitude at the bottom. And then at the very bottom is going to be all of our references, what we'll be looking at. So I chose to leave him nameless for now. But I decided on kind of an age range. So 18, I decided I wanted to draw a guy. And I decided on kind of his appearance. A good idea is actually to choose location first, unless you already have kind of an idea. So I was gonna play with the idea of suspenders, um, kind of having some wild, crazy hair, really curly, something kind of along those lines. So wild, bushy hair, um, red nose is the pretty defining factor. Makeup, all the stuff you would see, I think, is part of like a clown. When you hear about a clown. So obviously his occupation is a clown, but it's a good idea to write that down anyways. And then I had to choose, is he a professional clown? Is it just his hobby? I opted for hobby in this case. And then I chose a location. So I decided that it might be a good idea to choose kind of a city because that's my frame of reference. We live near Los Angeles. So I thought it made the most sense to do something that was kind of along those lines, because I didn't have to do any extra research. I could just pull from my own experiences. And then for personality, I decided to go for someone who was pretty outgoing, loves being around people, loves making people laugh. And then I decided to go for a more positive attitude. So someone who really just thinks that the world is going great and he has a really positive, really good outlook on kind of how things are going in his life. Um, there's other things to think about if you have, I know some people have whole like stories for their characters. That's something to kind of think about too. If that's you and that's what you like, think about how they fit within the story. Are they the main character? Are they kind of a side character? What's their relationship with the other characters? Those are all things to think about too. Not necessarily things you need to design one character, but if you're going for a whole story, that's something also to think about. So also for attitude, it's also important because it can help us determine how they're gonna pose, how are we gonna draw them? Because someone with a bad attitude, they're not gonna be like smiling. They're probably gonna be kind of hunched over, not wanting to talk to anybody. Just kind of maybe not as fun to be around. Whereas someone who's positive is probably gonna be really open and really maybe jumping, smiling, appearing pretty happy. So just all things to think about when you're thinking about drawing kind of your own cartoon character. And I'm not saying you necessarily have to make these lists, I just find them really helpful. So I wanted to share kind of that tool with all of you. So here, I'm going to move on to drawing these things called thumbnails. So these are a little bit different than what a lot of people use for thumbnails, but because I'm just designing a character and I'm not designing a whole piece of artwork, I'm not going to separate them into like rectangles or squares, which is what you'd usually want to do. I'm just going to just draw out my character and draw out these different ideas. And as you notice, I'm also numbering them. The numbers are helpful because you might like the way the hair looks on one character, but you might not like the way the jacket looks or something like that. And I'm keeping things pretty loose. I'm not putting in any sort of real details. It's all stuff that's going to be pretty easy to get across very quickly, because when you actually go in to finish drawing your character, that's when you're going to put in all the details and all the time and the hard work. And these are just fast things. Get your ideas out, because one idea may be really bad, one might be really good. You might not know what you like until you just try it. So I'm going to keep going. I'm using digital tools. Usually, if you're not using digital tools, obviously you wouldn't be able to scale things down. I just have this really bad habit of drawing really big and then running out of space when I used my digital tools. And I wanted to make sure I wasn't using multiple pages and keeping them all in one place. So I'm just going to keep sketching them out. I'm just going to keep drawing. I'm going to draw probably about 4 or 5 of these little characters. And as you can see, I'm just doing shapes, not a lot of detail, lots of very gestural drawings. I think in my last video I talked a little bit about sketching and gestures. So that's basically what I'm doing here. I'm just doing it in kind of this more cartoony style. So I'm just going to take a pause here, maybe play a little bit of music while I finish this up, and I'll interject where I think I need to. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so now that I have my 4 sketches, I'm just going to write kind of some things I like about each idea. So I'm going to choose about 4 things. I'm just going to choose at least one from each drawing. So for number 4, I'm going to say he looks young. I like his face shape. For number 2, I like the outfit. For number 3, I really like the eyes. 2, like the hair. Number 1, like the shoes, the costumes with the shorts. As you can see, there's not a lot of detail in these sketches, mostly because I'm just trying to come up with some ideas, not really trying to get too detailed, because that's for the ending part where I actually make the character. A lot of what I like to try and do is pull things from each different design. So I kind of decided to go with more of a character similar to number 4. So the first thing I'm going to do is just sort of sketch it out, figure out what I want, using some of the things that I noticed of the other characters that I really liked. So as you can see, I kind of have the frills that I liked, I have the big shoes, I have this curly hair, and it's really, really simple because this is a cartoon character. A lot of cartoon characters are made out of simple shapes. As you can see, I'm not going too detailed too fast either. I'm kind of sticking with just a really loose sketch. I'm just trying to figure out what I want him to look like based on the other drawings that I did and what I liked about those other drawings. I'm also not super closely following my original list of ideas, which is okay if you're doing this for yourself. If someone had hired you to do something, then that probably wouldn't be okay. But if you're just doing it for your own artwork, this is more of a tool, that kind of list of things. You're not, like, you don't have to be stuck to it. You can do kind of whatever you feel is best. It's just to kind of help you get into that mindset of designing something on your own instead of just copying a reference. So because I have digital tools, I'm kind of using them a little bit just to speed up the process so we're not watching a super long video. But obviously if you were doing this on a piece of paper, you would be doing it with a pencil and an eraser of some kind. Unless you have digital tools, in which case then you can do what I'm doing, which is I'm using the lasso tool to kind of move things around and resize things. So I decided to give him more of the suit option that I liked off the other character. I'm going to keep kind of the frills I liked, some of the face paint and makeup, kind of the suit pants, and now I'm going to think about all the shapes. So a lot of this character has a lot of very simple shapes. As you can see, I have a lot of ovals. I'm just going to outline them in red so you can see them. I have a lot of rectangle shapes, some teardrop shapes in the arms, where the elbow is kind of the tip of the teardrop. I have a cylinder shape, kind of a half crescent shape. So shapes are really, really important. I'm just going to talk about it a little bit more as I draw my final line art. Especially with cartoons, because a lot of cartoons, if you look at them, so if you're looking at something like SpongeBob, he's basically just a square. His eyes are kind of round, or an oval shape, but that's what he is. He's a square. Or if you're looking at other cartoon characters, lots of simple shapes. Steven Universe, lots of circles, and that's kind of what a lot of cartoons do. They're not doing stuff that's super detailed or super realistic. A lot of them are doing these more simple shapes. Sorry, my phone went off. And that's kind of what you're going for. Some cartoons don't. I have seen some cartoons that go for a more realistic route. And that's fine too, if that's what you want. There's no like rule that you have to draw in a cartoon style. This is just how I work and what I like to do. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep going. So what you're seeing here is I'm actually drawing through my lines, which is something you can do if you have a pencil. So it means instead of just drawing a straight outline, I'm drawing through the lines I've already drawn, just erasing what I don't want. You're also gonna see me turn the pages a lot and redo stuff, which is something you can do on your own when you're doing your final work. If you're using a pen, obviously it's a little bit harder. But if you're using a pencil, first to decide what you want and then going over it again in pen, you could definitely do this. So I'm just going to do some stripes, erase the things that I don't want. And I'll probably just play some music over the rest of this. But I'm going to keep talking just in case. I'm going to turn my phone off because that's obnoxious. Let's see. Just finishing up some stripes here. This is another thing to talk about. When you're drawing a cartoon character, you can still kind of make it look three-dimensional even though it's flat. So as you see, as I'm drawing, some of my lines, like the cuff of his sleeve, go underneath the hand, which gives it kind of the illusion of being three-dimensional, like if you were drawing something a little bit more realistic. I'm also not necessarily following my sketch to a T. I'm turning the sketch off because I have digital tools. But if you were doing this on paper, you could probably just draw over what you don't want. So if you were doing pen, you would draw what you want and then erase the original pencil lines underneath. So I'm just going to keep going with the stripes, finish up the arm. And because I have digital tools, I get to kind of turn off my sketch and check it. So I do a lot of that. That's a really big part of my process because I don't want to become too connected to my sketch. I want to feel free to kind of change things that aren't working. Like here, I decided those weren't round enough. They were too flat. So I re-rounded the stripes. And this just kind of gives it another illusion of being more three-dimensional instead of something that's very flat. So I'm going to add some more stripes. As you can see, I'm kind of curving my stripes to kind of match the curve of the shirt, which will also help with kind of the 3D illusion and also making it feel a little bit more like he's a real character with some personality, and also having some of that kind of real life physics helps too kind of create that illusion. So I was playing around with some ideas of adding even more stripes. I decided not to go through with it because it just felt like too many stripes. We don't want to overwhelm your drawing by adding too much detail when you're doing things like cartoons. You can, if that's you and that's what you want to do. But a lot of cartoons, they're designed for TV or to be drawn many times, really over and over again. So it's really, I think you're going to be hard pressed to find super detailed cartoons. It's just going to have just the right amount of detail that'll make it easy to redraw over and over and over again, especially if you're animating your character or doing something kind of like that. So I'm just going to finish up the legs. And it's okay to redraw stuff. If you're not happy with it or if it's not working, you don't have to be stuck on your original sketch or what you originally wanted. You can change things until you get the look you want. Like I was kind of experimenting with some hatching for shading. And the reason I have his foot kind of stuck forward in the sketch is I wanted it to look a little bit like he was walking or engaging in some kind of activity. Because he has a very positive kind of outgoing personality, so he wouldn't be hunched over. He wouldn't be kind of this sitting there doing nothing. He would be very kind of outgoing outside into the world and doing a bunch of stuff. And he would probably seem pretty happy. So I wanted to choose a pose that kind of reflects that. As you can also see, I kind of struggled with the shoe bit a little bit here. I wanted to give it the cartoon look, but I also wanted to make sure it was looking like how it should, so it looks a little bit more 3D. So now I'm just going to do a quick pass with color for the next few minutes. So because I'm working in digital tools, I can put the color underneath the pen. If you were doing this on paper, you would probably, if you were using markers and you were using pen for your outline, you could do the pen first and then the markers. You just have to make sure that whatever pen and marker you're using are not going to bleed together. So I know some artists that use microns and Copics. So microns are waterproof. So when they draw over it with the color with the Copics, it doesn't mix together. I also know some artists that use the Prismacolors. I know some artists that use Sharpies. It's whatever tool works best for you. You just want to make sure whatever pen you're using to outline your piece is not going to dissolve in water when you use the marker on top of it, because marker is basically a liquid. Okay, and then for my color, I'm choosing my colors based on my reference pictures. You don't necessarily have to. If you have some colors you really, really like and you just want to stick with those, that's okay too. But I really wanted to choose stuff from my reference because I chose my references because I really liked them and I want to pull from that. So I'm going to start with kind of a green hair. And as you can see, I'm keeping the colors flat. I'm not doing a lot of detail in the first round because it's kind of a first layer. So you would probably be a good idea to try that with markers or paint too, just doing one layer and then building shading on top of it if that's what you want, if you want to do something with more shading and detail. And because I'm working in digital tools, I get to kind of color over and erase when I make mistakes. But if you were painting, you could paint over your mistakes. You can keep trying. And it's okay if you make mistakes. I would say just own it. Just keep going with it, see what you can do to make it work. So as you can see, I actually left his ear covered in green. But now I'm gonna go and fix things. So I'm adding color to my stripes. I'm starting with a lighter color first, because generally it's better to start with your lighter color, because it's easier to change to a darker color. But it's really hard to make a darker color lighter. And that's something that I talk about with my artists a lot, because it's helpful. If you paint something black or draw something black, it's really hard to get it to go back to white, and a lot of times you can't. So I try and follow that as much as possible in my own artwork, even when I'm working digitally, because there are ways in digital artwork to kind of make the transition from light to dark and to cover things over. It's also just a really good habit to get into, starting with your lighter colors and really thinking about those things. So just to speed things along, so we're not sitting here for a long time watching me draw, I'm using a paint bucket tool, which is basically just filling in the color for me, and I'm just making edits. If you were doing this more traditionally, you'd obviously would be just coloring it in, like you would with anything else with marker or color pencil. I just don't want to have you guys sit and watch me color for 2 hours. It probably wouldn't be fun. But again, I started with my lighter shades and now I'm moving into my dark, which is the purple, and I'm just filling it in, staying inside the lines as much as possible. So I'm trying out some different things for the pants. I opted away from a red and went to like a darker blue that I felt matched what I was drawing more than the red I was initially considering. And then for shoes, I decided to go for a red because I think when you think of clowns, I think you probably, a lot of times, at least for me, I think of like Ronald McDonald with the big red clown shoes and that kind of stuff. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of keep that. And then I kind of ending, I personally usually end on my skin tone, so I can kind of make it look good in comparison to kind of what they're wearing. And that's just me. You don't necessarily have to do that. You could start with your skin tone because it is a lighter color. At least in this case, it is. Not always. People have different skin tones. But that might be a way to go if you were to do a clown like this, is start with the skin tone and then try and match whatever colors you're using for the outfit to that. And I'm ending on my face makeup. So I want him to look like a clown, and most clowns have some form of face makeup. It's not just a costume. You got to think about everything. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of hatching to add a little bit of definition. You don't necessarily have to. I just find it to be make my pieces look a little bit more interesting. And that's it.